Hello and welcome back to the American Ultra Stock channel. Thank you so much for being here. What's going on? Another video 2 in 3 days? That's amazing. We're back in form. My sincere apologies for the recent lack of uploads. But here we are, and we're here to do our favorite type of video. We're going to be covering our beloved USMNT. Some big news. This is going to be our prediction video. We're going to go over our predicted lineup, thoughts on the replacements as well, since we have 3 new guys in camp. And finally, we'll go for a score line as well, as everyone loves to do that. Braden, straight to the point, we have Max Arfston, who I think did well during Camp Cupcake. Granted, that's what it is, Camp Cupcake. Brian Gutierrez and Jack McGlynn coming in for Jedi, Trusty, and Johnny Cardozo. What do you think? I think this was a bit controversial. Ponch is still in that honeymoon phase where a lot of people don't really have a critical sense, I think, with some of his call-ups. But what do you think? Do you think these were the right call-ups? Thoughts on it?
Yeah, I hate to start the video off on a negative note because it's just not fun. But these are just lazy and unambitious and I think just naive call-ups. I can't really find much of a positive here. I think the only takeaway, if you believe that Poch is even the one making the call-ups, there's some conspiracy theories maybe out there that it's just USSF filling their MLS quota. I don't know, but honestly, the more that time goes on, the more that I'm kind of convinced that Poch doesn't really care who's in the camps. I don't think he really knows. I think maybe he just has a list of the main guys, and then after that, he doesn't really care because I don't think he's bothered to look at the pool. He's too busy going to charity matches and hanging out with iShow Speed. Maybe he'll get a call up for the next camp. Who knows? It'll be, I guess, easier than bringing one of the guys who's based in Europe. That seems to be all this is. You're bringing MLS-based players that impressed against horrible level opposition in Camp Cupcake rather than guys who have been actually playing at a higher level, who are in Europe, who are fighting it out and actually deserve the call-ups. Even players like Zendejas, who's in Liga MX, not in Europe, but it's still a higher level. He's still playing for one of the best teams in that league, one of the best players in that league, and still can't get a call-up. It's just sad, honestly. I hope these guys do well. Jack McGlynn in particular, it's nice to see the Union alum get USMNT call up for the first time with the A team, but without Jedi, we're in huge trouble. And it's almost like there's a left back in the pool that maybe we could have been recruiting, maybe Poch could have been talking to beforehand. And if that would have happened, maybe we would be fine at left back. But nope, we're calling up Max Arfston, a rotational player, mainly starter, but a guy who sometimes doesn't play for Columbus Crew. He's been good in MLS, it has to be said, but how much stock can you really put into that? It's not good, especially as the only left back on the roster. It's hugely concerning. As for the other replacements, we kind of learned the lesson. Brian Gutierrez is a winger of sorts, so it's nice that there is a little bit of wing depth. Again, Zendejas would have been way better. Either of the Aronson brothers would have been better. If you're going to go with a player like that, it's just it doesn't make sense having Gutierrez as that guy, although he has started the season pretty well with the Fire. And then McGlynn, again, just go with Paxton Aronson, go with Busio, go with Aiden Morris. I like McGlynn, but I think it depends where he's going to be playing. If he's at the 6, he's a defensive liability. Hopefully, if he does play at all, which he probably won't, he's at the 8 and has more of a free license to roam about and play the through balls that he's so good at. But overall, it's just very underwhelming. I see it as lazy. I see it as Poch really not wanting to expand the pool, and it's sad. He's placing a huge emphasis now on these Camp Cupcake guys, not even just them. We had White and Ajimong, Diego Luna, Zach Steffen on the camp, Miles Robinson, so we'll see how they do. It's their time to shine now on the big stage. Hopefully they do well, but I'm not necessarily optimistic about it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I'm sort of glad that we have the same viewpoint right here because I think, can you imagine if this was Greg? Would there be any conspiracy theories saying that this is USSF pushing a propaganda? He's not one making the roster. Guys, one of his first interviews was propping up MLS and saying that the level was good. So, yeah, I think it's lazy as well. It's sort of, I don't know. It's just a lack of effort. That's what I see from this. But anyways, hopefully it's still enough. The opposition isn't great. Either not to disrespect Panama, but they're not an amazing world-class team where they can exploit, and we will say that we absolutely have to have our best 11. So that being said, to the guys that you think would be enough to win this game. I'm curious to see if you would shift a formation. Let's go with what you would put out there. Who would you start and go and for your defense?
Yeah, it's an interesting one because now with Jedi out and I guess Trusty, although I don't think he would have fit into many people's 11s, but he was probably that backup left back if he had stayed in camp. So with both of them out, it's very interesting to see how things get shifted around. Johnny as well, I think, was pretty much a consensus starter for most people. So the replacements, or maybe they come in. I think Turner's probably going to be in goal, pretty self-explanatory. For the center back duo, I hope it's McKenzie and Richards, especially now that Jedi's not playing, that he's out of camp. There's no more excuse for Ream saying, oh, he's built up chemistry with Jedi at Fulham. Jedi's not there, so it's anyone's game now. Arfston probably will be at left back now that he's called in. Personally, what I would do is probably have Joe Scally play left back. I think it just makes more sense. He can play there. He's shown that in the Bundesliga several times for Gladbach, and I think it's just better than the alternative. I'd rather have Arfston as a backup option. Hopefully he doesn't have to play at all, to be honest. And then at right back, I think I'd probably shift back Tim Weah. As much as it would probably suck not having him in the attack and replacing him with, unfortunately, Yunus Musa on the wing, who kind of offers nothing from that position. I just think it's the way to get our strongest 11 on the pitch, and Weah is now the starter for Juve at right back. It's clear that he's well versed in that position. It will be interesting to see what the tactics look like, because it would kind of have to be a switch of what Poch has usually done, because usually Jedi bombs forward on the left, Scally stays home as a third center back on the right. In this situation, it would be Weah bombing forward on the right, and then Scally staying home on the left as a third center back. So just kind of switching those sides there, which I think honestly works fine anyway, because if you're going to have someone bombing forward, you want it to be on a side where the winger is a little bit more defensive, in my opinion. And Musa is definitely more defensive than Christian Pulisic, who I have and I think everyone has at left wing. So I think it actually works out for the best here. For the midfield, I think there's two ways that you could go with this. Adams and Weston McKennie are no-brainers. Of course, they have to start penciled into the starting lineup. The question is, does Weston McKennie play the 10 or does he play in the double pivot? Personally, I would probably play him against Mexico. I think I'd play him at the 10. Against Panama, I think we can afford to be a little bit more attacking, so I will give Gio Reyna the start. Against Mexico, I'd probably switch it to Tanner Tessman at the 6 alongside Adams, have McKennie at the 10. But against Panama, I think we can afford a little bit more attacking, especially wasting Weah at right back, Musa on the wing. We need a little bit more creativity up at the 10 position. So Reyna comes in, gets a chance to prove himself after a very, very poor club season. Hopefully he can deliver on form. And then, of course, Josh Sargent up top. Again, hopefully he can deliver, because this is his final opportunity. I truly believe with the USMNT. He's never going to have a chance this good to claim a spot on the roster with Haji, Pepe, Balogun all out. This is his prime opportunity. Hopefully he doesn't waste it. But that's my 11. I'm curious to see if you have a similar thing or something different, because now that there's injuries, we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel in some positions.
I'll be honest, these injuries just highlight how thin and how bad the provisional roster was, because if all of a sudden now we look at it, we're playing one of the most meaningful matches we're going to have until the World Cup, and we are thin. We're thin, really. We're going to have to shift around players, play them out of position. I don't think that he's going to be that creative. I think that Arfston is going to play. That's just how I see it, but I will do exactly like you said. And one thing it's important to highlight for the people that are still skeptical over McKenzie, Jedi used to mask and save, really bail out Tim Ream quite a lot of times with his speed and his, just the chemistry that they have. But he would also be that guy that would do the legwork in case Ream wasn't able to sprint or challenge a forward, an attacker. So I agree. I would put Scally at left back. For right back, it has to be Weah. He's used to playing there. McKenzie and Richards. And then for the midfield position, I actually would put McKennie at the 10. I think that he's doing well at a more free-flowing role at Juve. His confidence is really high. I think it's at an all-time high. And I'll use Pulisic in a wing. The other one, we're going to have to use Musa, really. But it's what we have, really. I think that this just highlights how bad the provisional roster was, how thin we are, and how lazy the replacements were. Don't want to be too negative. And then up top, it has to be Sargent, and he has to deliver. honestly, that's how I would go. But at the double pivot, I would go with Tesman and Adams. It's just that I think that Gio, especially since he hasn't played, I wouldn't start him. I think that he's going to be these are perfect matches for Gio. The opposition is not at a world class level. The game's probably going to be a little bit more open and not as physical when he comes on. So I think that he can be the super sub for this camp. That's how I would see it. Ultimately, Panama have been really difficult for us, as we all know. So I'm curious to see what your predicted scoreline will be. Do you think we can make it through?
Yeah, I think regardless of all the injuries, I don't think anyone will have an expectation or a prediction of us to lose. I'm going to stick with that. I think we are going to win. Honestly, I think I'm going to go with another 2-0. That's what the score was when we played them in actually Pochettino's first ever game with the USMNT, and I think it'll be more of the same here. I think just a comprehensive win and nothing too big necessarily. It is technically a semifinal match, so Panama are going to be doing their best to keep it close. I just can't see them having too much of a leg in the game, especially since it is in California. Hopefully, we should be the home team. I would assume that we have more fans in Panama. Maybe if we play Mexico in the final, that won't be the case, but at least for the semi, we should be the home team. And I think we're just going to dominate possession, dominate the play, get a couple of goals. Goals might be hard to come by, especially if Weah is shifted back to the defense and with Sargent at striker. I'm going to predict Sargent to score, mainly just out of pure hope and prayers that he will, because I think that'd be such a huge moment for him. Honestly, I think the fact that he hasn't scored in such a long time for the USMNT is weighing on him now. I think it's a little bit of something that he needs to just get off of his shoulders. And once he does score that first goal, they're going to start coming, because I mean, we've seen the form that he's been in at Norwich whenever he's healthy over the past 2 seasons. I think that he's going to score, break his 5-year duck. Unbelievable that it's been half a decade, but I think he'll finally score, and then maybe he'll net in the final. Who knows? The other goal, we'll say Gio Reyna as well. Let's just go with the 2 guys who absolutely need the performance the most. Try to be a little bit optimistic here. Pulisic gets an assist in there somewhere, and a clean sheet. Despite some of the shakiness in defense, I think that ultimately we should have enough to contain Panama. And I'll predict the other game as well. Why not? Because it's consequential to us. It's who we might face in the final. So Canada versus Mexico, I'll just go out and say it. Canada currently are my pick to win the entire Nations League. We'll see if that changes after the 2 semifinal matches. Theirs is right after ours, so on the same day, on Thursday. But I think Canada are winning the whole thing. I think they have an incredible team right now, and Mexico are kind of at a weak point. I think this is Canada's match to win, despite the fact that it will be kind of an away game. Mexico will have the home crowd. I think Canada has enough to get it done.
Yeah, interesting. On the Mexico-Canada game, since that was your last point, I think it'll go to pens. For some reason, I just think that would be nice to watch. It'd be definitely worth the ticket if that's what happens. For us, I don't know if I'm being pessimistic here. I think 1-0. Even though I think that Panama, they're really well drilled. They're a difficult side to play against. I'm not entirely sure that, not criticizing Poch, I think he's a great coach, not that good of a manager, but I don't think that he has enough time really to drill these players in the situation where he has to shift them around. So I still think our quality is going to top them. And for the goal scorer, I'll go with McKenzie, a corner, a scrappy corner. I think he deserves a goal. He's one of the most hated players I mean, I know he's unlucky at times, but he's had a really solid season. It'd be nice to see him get Ream to the bench, man. Honestly, we need to move on, and that seems to be the narrative. Everyone still thinks that Ream should be the starter. I would love to watch McKenzie score a goal. But that's our prediction, our thoughts on what has been, it hasn't even started, but a bit of a chaotic camp. So let us know if we're being too pessimistic. What do you think is going to happen in the games? Do you think we're going to win it all? And who would you start on your lineup as well? I'm curious to see what people are going for. I see a different set of formations out there, but make sure to leave a like, subscribe, share with your friends, and we'll see you next time.